All right, everyone. I think we might be about 1 minute early, but we are going to go ahead and start our week 3 newfangled middle school book club live chat about our book Cinder. So my name is Anna Wilson. I'm the director of title programs for the Alene School District. And I have the great task of being the week 3 moderator following the fabulous Nick and Laura, both from the Hayden Library and then the Coeur d'Alene Public Library. So I will try to live up to their expectations, but I have to tell you, they did a great job. So I have big shoes to fill. For those of you who are in New York last week and missed us on our last chat about week 2, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully we'll start seeing people logging on here to Edmodo anytime. So welcome to those people. Before we get going too much further, let me remind you that next week we're trying something a little differently. The last chat of the month about Cinder will be a live chat in person. We will be meeting from 4 to 5 p.m. at the Hayden Library there on Government Way. We will be talking about the conclusion of Cinder, and we'll be handing out copies of our next book, which we have all voted on, and it will be Chomp. Remember, if you have loved Cinder as much as I have, and you can see this is a well-worn book right now, we will be having a few copies of Scarlet to give away. So join us next Thursday, June 25th from 4 to 5 p.m. for our chat about Cinder and our handing out of the next book. A reminder that Laura Jenkins did post on Edmodo a poll to see what we would like to have for snacks at our live chat. So we have 2 choices right now. We have a sundae bar or pizza. So make sure you cast your vote. I have not looked for a while yet to see what that survey looks like so far, but maybe we can get Nick or somebody else to give us a little, oh, here we go. I just found it online. So right now, 55% of you are saying that you would prefer pizza and soda. 44% are saying they want an ice cream sundae bar. So if you have not cast your vote yet, make sure you log on to Edmodo and cast your vote for what you would like for a snack for our live chat. Okay, so here we go. We have lots to chat about this week. We had, and thank you for giving me the third chat because there was a lot of meaty stuff in this particular section of the book. We are chatting about chapters 21 to 31, pages 187 to 282. So that we don't give away any spoilers, I just want to remind you this section starts with Queen Lavina arriving on Earth, and it ends with Cinder's stepmother telling her she must give up her new foot, and Cinder has discovered that her beloved, I think it's Iko, has been dismantled. So that's the section that we're going to be talking about today. So remember, if you've read forward, which it looks like a lot of you have, I'm seeing lots of people posting on here that they finished the book literally in the first week. Jasmine, she got carried away and finished the book last Friday. Krista said she finished it in the first week. Me too, Krista. I couldn't put it down. So remember, if you're posting tonight online, please don't give away any spoilers for those who have not yet finished the book. All right, so here we go. We're ready to begin our chat, and I think Nick is joining us remotely, and he's going to be posting some of the questions for me as I say them out loud, so stay tuned for Nick on Edmodo. So did any of you get a chance to read the link that I posted a couple days ago to Marissa Meyer's website? I just was kind of goofing around preparing for this chat, and I stumbled across her website, and she has all kinds of interesting information on there, but I posted a link to the page about the lunar history. And as I read through that information about the history of the moon or the lunar settlement, I started thinking about what it would be like to live on the moon. So my question that I think Nick is going to post here is, what aspects of lunar life would you like? Oh, that's hard to say. So what aspects of lunar life would you like? And what would be a challenge for you after having read that description on Marissa Meyer's website? So why don't you post your responses while I kind of tell you my response to those 2 questions. So first, I would say things that I would like about living on the moon. So I liked the idea, the way she described beyond the domes. She says the sky is always black and the stars are always visible. I thought that would be very beautiful. She says Earth can be seen from those domes on the Earth-facing side of Luna, and it is 60 times brighter and 4 times larger than the moon appears on Earth. So I thought, man, if I was standing on the moon and looking toward Earth, that would be a spectacular sight to see. The second thing I thought that was really interesting about the lunar history from Marissa Meyer's website is the concept of days, how many days it takes there. So I was reading that she says one lunar day and night lasts about 28 earthen days. So that's kind of interesting. One lunar day and night is 28 Earth days. So I was kind of thinking, that might be a great math problem. That's probably the teacher in me. So if you lived on the moon, think about how old you would be right now. So 365 days in a year, which is really only 13 lunar days. So if there are 13 lunar days in a year, how old would you be on the moon right now? Can you figure that out? See, I'm getting older, so I kind of liked it because it made me much younger than I am right now. So if you're 12 years old, you would only be 156 lunar days old. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, you can do the math. You can figure out how old you'd be. I'm not going to tell you how old I am and how many lunar days or lunar years I would be, but I much prefer those numbers than the actual ones. Anyway, the next part of my question was, what would be the challenge of living on Luna? And so one of the challenges that I saw is how controlling, I don't know if you read that part, how controlling the royal family is on the moon. Wow. An example, just an easy example, is the messages or communication, how they control those messages and communication. They've got that closed circuit and controlled by the government. So lower class lunars do not have access to news or information from Earth. So very controlling. I thought that would be extremely challenging for me. So I'm looking for some responses here. Karen, actually, thank you, Karen, has posted, what would it be like to live on the moon? What aspects of lunar life would you like? And what would be a challenge for you? Thank you, Karen. So we'll see if we can get a few responses to come in here. While we wait for those responses, hopefully you can check out Marissa Meyer's website. There's all kinds of cool information on that. I really liked the section actually also about the frequently asked questions. If you go check it out, though, be warned, there are some spoilers on there, but I loved that she has some very detailed descriptions about some of the characters from Cinder. And then she has a little more information about some of the characters like Scarlet and the Wolf and some of those other characters in her future books. So I thought that was really interesting, although I have to tell you, I kind of cheated and read a little too far on some of the other characters in the other books that I have not read yet. So be warned that there are spoilers on there if you read those frequently asked questions. Okay. So we're going to move on. I don't see too many responses yet. Hopefully we'll get some people logged in here, and maybe they're just too busy on this gorgeous Thursday and they might log in later and respond to some of the questions that we're posting. I'm going to go ahead and move through my agenda for tonight. As Laura mentioned last week, there are lots of twists and plots in this section of the book, chapters 21 to 31. So remember, again, when you respond to my questions, don't give away any spoilers. But one of the first twists occurred on page 198. So I don't know if you have your books with you like I do or not, but on page 198, we have the twist where Cinder finally gets Prince Kai's android running, and they realize that the android is reporting about research about the lunar princess Selene. And Cinder at one point, it tells her to stop talking. So the android stops talking and doesn't say the rest of the message that she was delivering. But man, I thought, wow, Cinder's got a lot more control than I have. I would not have told the android to stop talking. I would have wanted to know what she had. But what did you think about that? So Would you have told the android to stop talking? Do you think you would have had that kind of control? I know I wouldn't. There's a lot of tension in this section of the book, chapters 21 to 31. So here's my next Edmodo question for you. Were there any scenes in chapters 21 to 31 that made you nervous or uncomfortable? This might be one of those sections. It made me a little nervous that for some reason this android is reporting about Princess Celine and possible whereabouts. But was there a section for you that made you nervous in chapters 21 to 31? I'll give you another example while we wait for some people to respond. I was really nervous for Cinder when she went back to the palace with the android and Queen Lavanna saw her. Do you remember that part when the crowd is kind of picketing or chanting that they don't want her there on Earth, and she comes out onto the balcony and uses her mind melding or whatever it is that she uses to control them, and they all quiet down. And Cinder was momentarily affected by that, but thankfully her cyborg sensor warned her that something was going on that was kind of weird. And then at that point, the queen in this whole crowd spots Cinder and notices that she's not being affected by her kind of brainwashing. And that to me was a really tense point in chapters 21 to 31, especially since Dr. Erlin has already told Cinder not to come around while the queen is there at the palace. So I was really nervous on that. What about you? Was there anything that made you nervous in chapters 21 to 31? So let's see. I don't quite see any the question up there yet. Maybe Karen's going to add it for me here in just a second, but let's look at a couple of the responses that we have so far. So Mrs. Booth, who is joining us as she's driving on vacation through the Las Vegas area. Thank you, Mrs. Booth, for joining in. She says, what would be challenging for you to live on in Luna? What would you like? She says she thinks the beauty would be fun. Krista says she doesn't think it would be great to permanently live on the moon. She said everything would seem alien, so she would have difficulty adapting to the change. Nice one. Toriana says, I think living on the moon would be fun. There's less gravity. Okay, that would be fun. You can bound to your next dome. Leah says, the queen there would be difficult to live with. Absolutely. That's what I was saying too. That royal family, boy, they would be challenging. All right, let's see what else we have here. Do we think it would be hard to survive on the moon? Because what would we eat? That's a great question, Tabitha. Laurel says, I didn't even think of that. So great discussions there. I'm going to go ahead and post my question. I'm still not seeing it on there yet. So I'm going to post it. Were there any scenes from chapters 21 to 31 that made you nervous? Oh, this is hard to do, to chat and to type and all of this stuff. So I'm posting that up right now. We'll take a look at that in a little bit and see what people are replying. Oh, that's funny. And now as I refresh my computer, Karen already has it on there. Sorry, Karen, I'll quit overriding you. All right, let's go, let's move on through. I might just mention a couple more scenes that caused me to feel anxious as we move through our discussion tonight in chapters 21 to 31. How about the mirror scene where Queen Lavanna opens up her dinner dish and there's a mirror on the tray and she kind of freaks out and the servant is initially blamed, and that whole scene with the knife and using the mind brainwashing to get the servant to almost stab herself, and Kai jumps in. That was really a tense scene. Cinder having to cut the chip out of Peony's arm, that was tense. When Cinder's stepmom had her arrested, wow, that was a tense scene too. And she finds out that Aiko has been dismantled. When they discovered the queen is building this army of mutants or whatever they were. I'm not sure what those things were. To me, it kind of reminded me of a description of a werewolf, but I might have been just being overly imaginative at that time. But those were definitely some tense scenes in chapters 21 to 31. Jordan says it was a tense scene when Prince Kai kissed Cinder in the elevator, and they got real close, and Cinder has one of those fainting moments. Yeah, that was pretty tense also. Good job. Okay. All right, let's see. Moving on through. Oh, this was interesting. So in page 223, so I'm going to go ahead and flip in my book to 223. This was an interesting scene to me because what became evidence on page 223 that Prince Kai has his own prejudice against lunars, which is really interesting since we all know that Cinder is a lunar. Anyway, let's look at page 223. So here she says, or Kai says, plus she's, and he's talking about Queen Lavinia, is now under the impression that we're intentionally harboring lunar fugitives. Her heart skipped. Really? I know, it's absurd. The last thing I want is more power-hungry lunars running rampant in my country. Why would I? It's so frustrating. So again, kind of becomes evident that Prince Kai is prejudiced against lunars. So here's my next question for you. And I bet you have experienced a little bit of prejudice yourselves as a teenager. And I'm curious about that because I myself have actually been a little prejudiced. I found myself acting a certain way because of a student's age, because they're teenagers. So I bet you do experience prejudice from now and again. But my question is, what real world parallels can you draw between the prejudice against cyborgs and lunars to today's teenagers? So have you ever felt that someone treated you a certain way because of your age? There's the question. So we'll let Karen post that. And again, it's just, have you ever felt that someone treated you a certain way because of your age, because you're a teenager? Just like it's evident here that Kai feels a certain way toward lunars just simply because they are lunars. And the example I was going to give of this was a couple summers ago. I was getting gas at a gas station, and a group of teenagers drove up and they were getting gas, and just was kind of watching, the whole loud music, wild teenager perception that I might have had at the time. But it was interesting because an older man was in front of me getting gas, and he walked inside to the gas station to pay for his gas. And as he was walking, he pulled his billfold out of his wallet. And when he pulled it out, a wad of cash, I don't know how much was there, kind of fell out. And before I could say anything to him, one of the teenagers saw this happen too and kind of dashed over to this wad of cash. And this is my prejudice coming out. My first thought was, oh my gosh, that teenager is going to take that money from that old man. But what actually happened is the teenager grabbed it and chased the guy and said, oh, sir, you dropped your money, and chased him down and handed it to him. So I was embarrassed by my prejudice that I had because of these teenagers with loud music. So I'm curious, have you ever experienced any kind of prejudice because you are teenagers? Anyway, we'll see what people have to say about that as well. So thank you, Karen, for posting that. I'm excited to hear if that's ever happened to you. All right. So as we're moving through, we'll continue to read the posts that are coming in. And thank you to everybody who is responding. I see that Shane is only on chapter 11. So, Shane, I hope I'm not giving away too much for you right now. But thanks for joining us this evening. And hopefully you're enjoying the conversation and the questions as well. Okay, let's see. I'm going to keep going. Chapter 24. So we have about 10 minutes left. Chapter 24, I'm on page 229 now. This was another interesting dilemma. Boy, lots of heavy stuff in this chapter, which was kind of fun to read and to think about, but man, lots of brain things. This is when Cinder thinks that Prince Kai is going to kiss her, but it says, instead of kissing her, he whispered, imagine there was a cure, but finding it would cost you everything. It would completely ruin your life. What would you do? Wow, that's a great question. So Kai is facing some pretty heavy decisions. I mean, the queen wants to marry him. Clearly, he does not, and for absolutely good reasons, as you well know. And Cinder, too, is facing some pretty heavy decisions. And so his question is, imagine there was a cure, but finding it would cost you everything. It would completely ruin your life. Well, what would you do? So what do you think? Do you think that people should sacrifice themselves for the sake of many? So should you sacrifice yourself so that you can save many other people? It's just like, you know, Cinder being the cyborg. Should she sacrifice herself to possibly come up with a cure and save, you know, possibly the entire civilization? And should Kai marry Queen Lavinia, or Lavanna, excuse me, to save his world? Or would he save his world? She's so crazy. I don't know that that would be the case, but what do you think about that? That's another heavy question that really got me thinking as I read the book. I thought, wow, that would be such a difficult choice to make. And would I personally be able to make that choice? I honestly don't think I could answer that unless I was in that situation. I'd like to think that I could sacrifice myself to save others. But boy, I guess you never know until you're faced with that kind of dilemma. Oh, I'm reading online right now. I'm back on Edmodo. Aaliyah says, I thought the fact that Queen Lavanna would purposely let the emperor die when she had the antidote was so bad, right? She, and Mrs. Booth says, me too, exclamation point. That was a terrible part, wasn't it? Where she says she has enough in the vial to save one adult male. And conveniently, she didn't reveal it to them until after the king had died. Wasn't that terrible? Because you know she had it before then. She is not a good person. Anyway, so I'm curious what you guys think about these heavy questions, and maybe on a beautiful sunny Thursday afternoon, these questions are too heavy for an Edmodo chat. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what you have to say. Okay. Another plot twist, Laura mentioned lots of plot twists in this book. So another plot twist was the fact that Dr. Erlin discovered that Cinder had an implant in her that was blocking her her lunar magic, or her lunar or it was blocking her from being able to manipulate the bioelectricity of others. That was a hard section. I had to read that section multiple times to really understand what was happening and what was this implant and what was it doing. So if you have any questions about that section of the book, certainly post it. But I thought that was an interesting one. So she is really unable to be affected, and she's unable to use her powers to affect other people as well. So it's blocked there. And that was an interesting plot twist that I didn't really see coming. So it was interesting. Okay. Oh, here was another question that I had. So at the end of chapter 25, and then again in chapter 27, so this is when Cinder gets the message that her sister Peony has entered stage 4 of letumosis, and she's trying to save her with the anecdote from Queen Lavinia. I don't know if it's Lavanna. So what did you think about that when she took part of that antidote? Dr. Erlin poured some out because he had promised her that he would. Did you think it was right for Cinder to deliver the antidote to Peony first, even though there were others who needed it? Do you think it was right of Dr. Erland to give her first access, even though he had promised? What do you think about that? Or, you know, there's a lot of sick people. Yes, it's her sister, but there are a lot of sick people who could use it. Or maybe he needed that full sampling to be able to save more people or duplicate it. I don't know. That was a really interesting part of it. Yeah. Oh, good. I see Laurel. Hi, Laurel. Good to see you online tonight. So I see Laurel is posting some questions. She had some questions about that section on chapter 25 about the implant and what it was doing and how it was blocking her glamour power. So I'm hoping that Karen will be able to, or Nick or somebody will be able to respond to her. That was a tricky section there, Laurel. So Good questions. Okay. I'm going to move on. We're down to about 6 minutes left, and there's a couple more things I really want to get to. Chapter 28. Oof. Lots of tension in this chapter for me. This is the chapter where the mirror is on Queen Lavanna's tray. I almost said TV dinner, but on her food plate. And man, that really shows what a baddie she is. She is not a nice woman at all. So she says to Sybil, "This human has shown me disrespect. It is not to be tolerated." And then Sybil hands the knife to the servant, and basically they use their mind control to try to get the servant to almost kill herself. And thankfully, wow, Prince Kai is so brave. He intervenes. He says he's the one who put the mirror in front of the queen, which is clearly not the case, but trying to save his servant. What a great leader he is. And the servant's life is spared, thank heavens. And it was super tense. This was a really tense part of the book. I could not put it down, kept turning pages. And then at the end of that chapter, Kai discovers that the Lunars have planted the mirror there themselves. It's a lunar mirror. And he says that they're testing him. So that was interesting to me, and it made me really think about my next question that Karen will probably post for me is, what do you think the Lunars are testing about Prince Kai when they plant the mirror on Queen Lavanna's meal tray? So what do you think they're testing it? How are they testing him? So I don't know about that. So as you post your replies, hopefully, to that question, what are they testing about Prince Kai? Are they testing his bravery, his loyalty? What is it you think they're testing? Anyway, I'll finish out the chapter. So the author kind of left us hanging. They discover that the boy that Cinder has given the little antidote to has recovered fully. The author just kind of leaves us hanging. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen and what impact this is going to have on the rest of the novel. But I'm sure it'll come into play at some point. We're not going to give any spoilers away, but that was a really good kind of cliffhanger, which is what I loved about this book. There are lots of little cliffhangers going along throughout that made me want to turn the next page. Okay, so we have about 3 minutes left. I'm going to post one more question to you, but before I post that last question, I just want to remind you that next Thursday, June 25th, from 4 to 5 p.m., it will be our face-to-face meeting. We'll be talking about the end or the rest of Cinder. We'll be meeting at the Hayden Public Library there on Government Way. We'll be handing out copies to our next book, Chomp, so do not miss out. You want to be there to get your copy of Chomp. And remember also, if you're loving Cinder as much as I have, we're going to have a few copies of the sequel, Scarlet, to give away to you. Again, we've got a link on Edmodo asking what you would like to snack on at this meeting. So whether it's pizzas or sundaes, please cast your vote. I think Karen even reposted the link so that people could get on there and cast their vote and say what they wanted. So I think we're going to end. We have about 2 more minutes. So let me end. I think Karen's already got it up there. Yep. My last question, and I'll tell you, this seemed absolutely true to me. Publishers Weekly, I was reading some reviews about the book. Publishers Weekly said the characters in Cinder are easy to get invested in. Do you agree with that? What characters do you like the most so far in the book, and what do you think about those characters, and what do you like most about those characters? Here's an example. Mrs. Booth has already said, is there anybody else who's suspicious of Prince Kai's aide, Torin? She says he seems a little fishy to her. And I see Nicole said, yeah, he does seem a bit odd. And Toriana says, now that you mention it, he does seem pushy sometimes. So thank you, Mrs. Booth, for getting that response going. So as we leave, hopefully we can continue the Edmodo chat online. We've got Nicole and Zach already replying to that. What characters do they like most in the book so far? Nicole likes Aiko, Cinder's little android, and Zach also does. It must be that little sass chip that she has in her that those two like, that little sassiness. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to see you face to face. It's fun to see your little tiny pictures in the corner. So when we meet next week, again, that's June 25th from 4 to 5 at the Hayden Public Library. We'll be serving snacks. Bring your copy of Cinder so we can chat about it. Be prepared to get your copy of Chomp. And I look forward to finally putting some faces with some names from our chats over the last couple of weeks. So thank you for joining us. Please log on to Edmodo and post your responses to our questions. Lots of heavy questions this week. Sorry, I know it's a beautiful summer day and we've made you think a lot. So thanks for putting up with me online and have a great rest of your day.